All right, so none of what we taught you so far today is going to matter unless we can help you get some more demos lined up. So, in your first weekend, we have you see people that you're really comfortable with, not necessarily everybody on your names list, but now that you're more comfortable, you've already done a few appointments, we can really expand the list of people that you're going to see. There's 3 phone approaches that you're going to learn, and I like to teach phoning in stages. So, the one that we taught you in training is the initial approach, which is for people that you know really well. What we're going to teach you a little bit later today is the acquaintance approach, which is for people that you kind of sort of know. And then the third approach is the recommendation approach. And this is for people that you don't know, people that you've never met. And it's also going to be for recommendations of recommendations. And, we'll review that with you one-on-one when the time comes. So it's important that you go in order, so that you master the current phone approach before you get to the next one. Phoning's a skill that needs to be developed, and the more people that you know to call, the more quickly that you can develop your skill. The acquaintance approach that you're going to learn later today, you'll be able to use for the rest of your fast start, and that's going to help you to really develop your skills on the phone. Even though I'm going to teach you the new approach, don't forget about your initial list. Remember, every demo that you do is going to lead to more skill, more income, more recommendations. So why wouldn't you exhaust everybody on your initial list first? We're also going to help you make that list bigger today. Remember, recommendations don't expire. So if you get recommendations tomorrow and you don't call them for 3 weeks because you have a bunch of other people to see, that's okay. Seeing more people is going to help you to become great at the job. And for me, once I did a handful of presentations, I realized how much fun it was, and I really tried to see more of the people that I knew as I got more confident. In fact, your mission should be to be as good as possible before you ever call a recommendation of a recommendation. This is why you worked so hard on your initial list after day 1, or at least you should have. So, like I said, you can call recommendations if you get recommended to somebody that you know. Like if your mom recommends you to your aunt, that's not a recommendation. But for the people you've never met that you don't know, we're going to let those stockpile. The rule of thumb is that you should have 100 plus before you tap into those. And that might sound like a lot, but if you meet with 10 friends, family, and you average 10 referrals, that's 100 right there. Or if you meet with 20 people and average 5, that's going to be 100 right there. So for most of you, you're going to have 150, 200, 300 plus. One of our top reps last year, Jesse Richmond, sold over $30,000 his first summer, had 235 referrals before he called his first one. So that's not necessary, but where do you think his confidence level was? Absolutely through the roof. So let me give you an example. If you dive into 6 inches of water, you die, right? Now, you can dive into 6 feet of water and you live. So calling your recommendations too soon is like diving into just 6 inches of water. There's just not enough. And it takes practice to get good at calling. So you're usually going to burn through 20 or 30 of them before you really get the hang of it. So if you start calling your recommendations now, you're really going to burn through a couple. So wait until you have 100, 150, 200 before you call those. Once you feel like you're totally tapped out of people you know really well and acquaintances, talk to your manager so they can actually teach you the phone approach for your referrals, and that way you have success on the phone. Give yourself 6 feet of water, though, not 6 inches. I'll give you another example. In a car, if it was manual transmission, which most of you probably don't have, but you're going to go from first gear to second to third to fourth. If you try to go from first gear straight to fourth gear, a lot of times you're going to stall, right? So you got to go from first gear to second gear. First gear is like your immediate family, your best friend's mom, people you know really well. That's probably who you saw, half of those over the weekend. For most people, that's about 20 to 30 people. So you might have seen half, a third of them. Second gear is going to be people that you know pretty well. So it's going to be your friends, like your family friends, right? Things like that. Third gear is going to be acquaintances, which is going to be the approach that we teach you today. So that's going to be people that, you could call, but you're kind of nervous to call because you don't really know what to say yet because you kind of know them. That's what we're going to teach you later. And then fourth gear is going to be referrals. Okay. So it'd be very awkward to go from doing presentations with people that you know really well to people that you've never met. Okay, so you want to set yourself up for a smooth transition. For your fast start contest, unless you're in a special circumstance, you should really spend your entire fast start contest going in first and then second gear, which is people you know really well and people that you know pretty well. Usually the week after your fast start, it's kind of 80-20. So you're going from people that you know pretty well, and then you're mixing in some acquaintances. And then the next week it's 60-40. The next week it's 40-60. And so for most of you, what's normal, if you make a big list today, which is what we're going to work on, what's normal is that you don't start calling your recommendations till you have a few hundred. You know, usually it's a month, 6 weeks into the position, something like that. And by then you've got hundreds and you're like, what am I going to do with all these people? And it's exciting. And so let's talk about why you should show Cutco to everybody that you know, everybody that you've ever met, and everybody that you ever will meet. In my opinion, if they're working and over 30 and you know them or they know your family name, you should give them a try. Remember, they eat, they cook, they probably are buying junk, so it's not like you aren't helping them out by calling. Also, they say no big deal. You know, they don't even remember that phone call tomorrow, so nothing bad can happen from calling people that you kind of know. It's an excuse to catch up. You know, if they say yes, you've got a demo that you didn't have before, that's more money in your pocket and an awesome product for them. And now you've got more names and numbers because you're going to get referrals from those people. If you work here long enough, you're going to get recommended to all of these people anyway. So it's really a disservice to them if you don't call. It would be like owning a store and not letting people that you know and kind of know through the door to buy stuff. You know, Americans are going to spend billions of dollars this summer and this year. And is any of that stuff going to be on a product as phenomenal as Cutco with a guarantee as incredible as Cutco? No. So it's a product that everyone should own. They use it every day. They never have to replace it. And in the process, it's going to save them tens of thousands of dollars. Think about it. Cutco's the best product in the world. They're going to literally use their Cutco 30 to 40,000 times in their lifetime, and they'll never spend another dollar on kitchen knives. But you'd rather just let them go to Bed Bath & Beyond? I mean, come on. And hopefully by now you're starting to see this position as more of a service that you're providing people because you're showing them Cutco. I remember just wanting to show everybody at some point because I knew how great it was going to be for them. I remember going from being upset when they said no because of how it affected me to being upset when I got no's on the phone because they were never going to get a chance to see Cutco. For some of you, because you're new, you may be a little nervous, but what you're going to find out is people in their 40s, 50s, and 60s are way nicer about this whole thing than you oftentimes think they are. When they find out you get paid just to show, they see how great the product is. When they see how professional you are, the skills that you're developing, you know, they're helping you out with college if you're a student. They're excited. They're going to be totally impressed. So just give them a shot. You don't want somebody else to call them and sell them knives, do you? Because that's what's going to happen if you don't show it to them. Your manager's job, you know, my job is to make sure that we show Cutco to everybody in our territory as soon as possible because we want to give them the best chance to get a great product. So I know for some of you, your holdup is that it might be a little scary to call a few of these people, but how do you usually feel after you overcome a challenge or you face a fear? You're going to feel great, right? And you're going to feel more confident. And if something as silly as calling someone for a knife appointment can give you more self-esteem, more self-confidence, it's totally worth it. I remember feeling that way at first, but I promise you'll get over it as you make more calls. Every time you step out of your comfort zone, it's easier to do it the next time. So some of the reasons that reps have told me that they don't make a big list or they're worried about calling some of these people. There's the fear of rejection, right? So, and here's the reality. Fear is always worse than the reality. Fear, F-E-A-R, is an acronym standing for false expectations appearing real. False expectations appearing real. By the way, nothing bad can happen from calling people that you kind of know. You know, it's an excuse to catch up. If they say no, you're no worse off. But what are they more likely to going to say? They're going to say yes most of the time, 9 times out of 10, exactly. And so if they say yes, now you've got a demo that you didn't otherwise have, and You know, it's more money in your pocket and it's an awesome product for them. Don't rob them of the opportunity to get Cutco because you're nervous to dial 9 buttons on your phone. And, you know, one thing I can guarantee is that if you don't call them, they're not going to set up a demo for you. All right. And maybe, you know, you haven't talked to them in a while, right? That's usually a positive thing. When you call them, they're excited to hear from you. You know, they're going to feel so good that in a time of need, you thought of them. You know, in your mind, you might make up this story that you're using them or bothering them or, you know, whatever you're telling yourself. But, you know, they're going to be glad that you were thinking of them and that they could help, you know. And also, they're going to be excited to catch up with you. You know, it's the easiest rapport that you'll ever have at a presentation. It's why reunions are so fun. It's why when you see somebody at the mall that you haven't seen in a long time, it's like, oh my gosh, hey, like, how are you? And that's what it's like when you call these people. And so in your mind, you're like, oh, they're going to be mad. We haven't talked in 2 years. And, you know, I'm going to call them. And they're going to be like, oh, you know, whatever. And so the fear, once again, you have these false expectations that in your mind, this is the way it's going to go. But 9 times out of 10, that's not the way it's going to go. They're not going to hang up and be like, can you believe David? Like, babe, David just called us, hasn't spoken to us in 2 years, just called us, asked us to do a knife presentation. The audacity. I mean, oh my gosh. That is ridiculous. And that's what some of you think is going to happen. That is not what's going to happen. What's going to happen is they're going to hang up with you and be like, huh, that was weird. And they're going to go back to watching TV or whatever they were doing when you called. So, and the next time you see them, it's like that phone call never happened. So I don't, anyway, so the other thing I hear, I don't know them that well. Or I'm just more comfortable calling my recommendations, right? I've heard that over the years. There is no difference between calling a recommendation and calling an acquaintance. It's the same approach practically. It's, hey, I was over to see your friend Betty the other day and she thought you might be nice enough to help me. Hey, I went to high school with your son. We graduated together, or we were on the soccer team together, right? If anything, it's better that you know their son, you know? Getting comfortable with what's uncomfortable is a big leadership quality that you need to develop to become successful, not just here, but in life. You know, that's just fear talking. It's illogical to want to provide something of value to people that you don't have any connection with before. You would want to provide it with somebody that you love and care about. It just doesn't make sense. So of course, you should show it to people you know first. Develop more pride in what you do. I can't wait for my future kids to be able to sell Cutco. Like, I'm just so excited about that. The president, all 4 of his children, Albert DeLeonardo, have sold Cutco. The other president of Vector West, Bruce's kids just sold Cutco. A lot of our region managers' kids have sold Cutco. Trent Booth, one of our higher ups in the company, his daughter is selling Cutco right now, summer 2019. So there's no risk in calling these people other than the irrational belief that they can somehow do harm or hurt you emotionally or socially or something like that. Calling acquaintances is the same as taking a calculated risk, only there's not really any risk except for your nerves and emotions. To be successful at anything, you've got to learn to take risks. You want to get your dream job, you got to take risks. You want to date that really attractive person, you got to take risks. Speaking of Al DeLeonardo, the president, he asked his wife 3 times to marry him before she said yes on the 3rd attempt. Talk about being willing to take risks. And now they're married for, I think, 30, probably 40 plus years. And you know, so if something as silly as calling someone for a knife appointment can help you develop a skill that's going to help you to be successful long term and maybe meet your future spouse, it's worth doing. Also, although the result of one phone call is inconsequential in the grand scheme of life, the habits that you form and the competencies that you develop, the emotional fortitude, the ability to face fear and nervousness with action that come from it are going to show up over time, especially when it really matters most. And in those moments, I want you to be ready. So now that I've handled your fears, objections, concerns, I now want to talk about how to build your list bigger. I'm going to help you with this. We're going to spend about 10 minutes on this. And the only thing that you should do during this time is add names to your list. So if you have room left over in your training manual, you can go there. If you have a blank sheet of paper and pen, you can go there, but get something ready. At the beginning of your career, you should spend time working on this every day, adding to your list names and getting more phone numbers. We're going to teach you some strategies for that. And the position's easy when you have plenty of people to call. So I have to start by saying that every single one of you still has more people that you could show the products to, people that you're acquainted with. Most of the people, you definitely want a blank sheet of paper. Most of you already know this is true. Like there's people on your list that you've been avoiding calling, all right? People that you see their name and you're like, nah, and you call the next one, right? We call that your chicken list, all right? So who's got somebody that every time they see their name, they're just like, nah, who's got that person, right? Yeah, look around. You're not the only one. And who has somebody on their list that they called like one time? They finally were like, oh, I'm just going to do it. And you called them one time, they didn't answer, and you were like, yes, thank you, right? Who's got one of those people on your list? And if you don't, it's just because you haven't stepped out of your comfort zone to even try one time yet. But we all have those people on our list. Those are your chickens, people that you could call, but you're too nervous to call. For those of you who don't have that list, that chicken list, it's because you have more people, but when we did the original exercise on the first day of training, you just avoided putting those people on your list altogether because you knew you were going to be too nervous to call them. So let me prove to you that you have more people, okay? This is going to be an involving exercise. So blank sheet of paper, here's what we're going to do. And just take a guesstimate. How many people on your original names list have you not done a demo for yet? So you're going to write original list and then a number. Original list, I had 100. I've only done demos for 20. I've got 80 left over, okay? So original list, how many? This should be rapid fire, quick. So next, school. How many people were in your graduating class? How many people were in your graduating class? So school equals blank, all right? So, I graduated with, I think, like 575 or something crazy, right? So school, how many did you graduate with? Next, teachers. How many teachers have you had? From kindergarten through senior year, how many teachers? It's probably 30, 40, 50 for all of you. So teachers, all right. Next, professors. Those of you that are already in college, how many professors have you had? Next, church, synagogue, or temple, whatever you're associated with, if anything. So if you are, write that. And then what's that number? How many in your congregation? And don't just think about it. So like my church, there's Sunday morning service, there's Sunday afternoon service, and there's Saturday night service. There's 3 services. So I got to multiply by 3, and that's how many people I'm associated with at my church. So think about that. What's that number? Next, and we're just going through the big categories here. Neighborhood. How many in your neighborhood? Surrounding area. Your old neighborhood. What about your old neighborhood? Maybe you've had multiples, right? Think about your neighbors, old neighbors. How many on your block, your street, cul-de-sac, wherever you live? What's that number? Next, siblings, friends, parents. Unless you have older siblings, maybe just their friends, but siblings, friends, parents. So if you have multiple siblings, how many friends do you think they have? Think about the sports, the clubs, the school, the organizations. What's that number? Last 3, sports that you've been a part of. So sports, clubs, organizations. So just think about how many were in each of your sports, how many were in each of your clubs, how many were in each of your organizations that you've been a part of, and write that number down. How many is that? Virtual demos. How many people do you know from out of town? So virtuals equals. How many out of towners do you know? How many out of towners? And finally, social media. You add your Facebook friend count to your Instagram followers, to your Snapchat friends or followers or whatever, and then you got, maybe a Twitter, Pinterest, MySpace, just kidding, and whatever else you're associated with online. You add up all of your followers. Managers, feel free to pause the video if we're running on time here and actually have them add that up. But for most of you, you could ballpark the number. So just ballpark the number. What's that number? So I did this exercise, and for me, it was 3,710. So go ahead and add up your numbers here. And what's that number? Most people, you're going to have several thousand people after adding this up. Go ahead and keep adding it up as I talk here. And, now that you can see how many people you could have on your list, hopefully that opens up your mind as to how many people you can show the products to. Now, are you going to be comfortable showing it to all 3,000, 5,000, whatever people that you have? No. Are you going to be able to get the phone number for all of those people? No. But 10%, yeah. We're also going to teach you how to direct message people on Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram. If they're adults, you can actually schedule appointments through messaging. If they're younger people, we'll teach you how to message them to get their parents' numbers. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to actually get a little more specific here, and we're going to actually help you to get your names list going bigger. So now's where you're going to want to go in your training manual. If you still have room in there, if you didn't crush your assignment originally, there should be 2 pages in your manual that have room for like 100 names and numbers on them. So you can go right there. You can get out a blank sheet of paper, whatever. And we're going to go rapid fire. Your managers should see your pens going crazy. All right. You're all going to have an assignment to show up to your team meeting this week, which is probably a few days from now, with more names and numbers than you showed up with to advanced training today. So the more names that you get during this exercise, the easier it's going to be to get more numbers between now and your team meeting. So here's what we're going to do. Here's the goal, 100 names. That's the goal, 100 names. And I promise if you write fast, you will have the ability to easily get 100 names on this exercise. And, and this is just going to be the start. So here's what you got to imagine. How much CPO is that? How much money is that? I mean, on base pay alone, you're talking thousands of dollars. But obviously our goal is to make more than that, right? So the first people I want to talk to you about is teachers and professors, okay? So we're going to write down every teacher, start with kindergarten. I'm going to go through some stories as I give you these thought joggers to help build your confidence as to why it's worth it. So as I talk, just write down teacher, 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 teacher. So the first one, start with kindergarten. Who do you remember? If you don't remember, write kindergarten and go dig up your yearbooks later, all right? So kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade, rapid fire, rapid fire. So kindergarten teacher, my kindergarten teacher, guess what? Homemaker +8. My third grade teacher, homemaker +8. My ninth grade assistant principal, galley +6. My 10th grade principal's wife. He didn't want to do the demo. He's like, nah, I don't really want to see a knife demo, but I'm sure my wife will listen to you, right? But that was that. That was easy. $400 sale. My 6th grade teacher, my 6th grade oh yeah, that was just my homeroom teacher. $600 sale. My 2nd grade reading specialist. Yes, I was not the best reader back then. Bought a $200 random order from me. Middle school librarian. $300 worth of Cutco. Think about the librarians, the art teachers, the gym teachers, music, right? The science, math, go through all the specials, right? My 5th grade art teacher bought a galley +6 and gave me her neighborhood directory, and I ended up selling over $10,000 in that neighborhood. My 8th grade track coach, 3-piece special. So think about your coaches, your teachers. Think about your professors. As you can see, the success rate for teachers, professors, it's pretty high. I saw 9 and all 9 bought Cutco. My average order for my teachers was over $900. So, it only takes one to see the rest, by the way. So my 5th grade teacher for art, I was friends with her daughter. I got her daughter to give me her mom's number. I booked the demo for her mom, and I brought the list that you're creating right now. I brought the list of all the names and numbers of my other teachers, and she just filled in the numbers for me. I just gave her the list because she had this directory for the whole school district, and she ended up filling in, I think it was close to 30, 35 teachers' numbers for me. On top of giving me her neighborhood directory. So this exercise you're doing right now led to that one appointment, which led to tens of thousands in sales, hundreds and hundreds of recommendations, thousands in my pocket. So here's the next category, neighbors. Who from your neighborhood have you not seen yet? Your neighborhood. All right. If you don't know their names, across the street, dog walker lady, right? And borrow sugar lady. All right. But think about across the street. My neighbor across the street, Kitchen Classics. Neighbor next door, Tammy, she got some super shears. Neighbor I mow the lawn for, butcher knife. Neighbor Steve didn't buy anything. He was somebody totally on my chicken list, right? So him and my dad were kind of friends. He was somebody that I saw once in a while, but He was like kind of nice, but like, I don't know. I just didn't really know him. He was my dad's friend, right? So finally I was like, I'm just going to call him. I called him. I went over. I did the demo. It was a no sale, right? I got one referral. So I'm like, oh, is this really, oh man, one referral, right? But I called that one referral. Now, this was weeks later, and I learned the referral approach, and I called that referral Kimberly Brahmer. I still remember her name. This is going back 9 years. Kimberly bought a family set. So we didn't used to have the signature set. So we created the family set, which was where they bought the scissors, they bought the kitchen tools, and they bought the homemaker. So they just paid full price for all three, and we gave them a free cutting board for a first call special. So that was before we had a signature. What's crazy is 2 weeks later, I found out that we sold Cutco. We didn't used to teach that in the basic training. And so I called her up 2 weeks after I sold her that $1,300 order. And I was like, Kimberly, I just found out we make cookware. I want to show it to you. No pressure. I mean, but I at least want to show it to you. She's like, yeah, come back. And she ended up buying an accomplished chef cookware set, which I think's, 2000 or whatever, 2100 for the accomplished cookware set. 2 weeks after, she just spent 1300 on the knives. And she worked at Dove Chocolate Factory, so I got some free chocolate and got paid, hundreds of dollars. So all of that came from seeing that one person on my chicken list, the list that you're building right now. So if somebody pops into your mind, you're just writing them down. They can't jump off the page and bite you. So all of your neighbors, your old neighbors, I'll show you how to look up the numbers later. So your friends and acquaintances, parents, your friends and acquaintances, parents. So many sales that it would take me way too long to rattle off, but this is where the real money can be made. You all are great people. Otherwise, you wouldn't be in the room right now. Being a great person means you probably have had a ton of friends over the years, and most, if not all of them, have parents that are over 30 and working full time. I'm not saying that they need to be your best friend. I'm saying, Brooke, I don't even remember her last name, but Brooke, I saw her parents. We just sat next to each other in science class. We had each other's phone numbers, but I ended up doing a demo for her parents, right? So these are just people that you kind of know. So think about friends from high school. The best way to do this, you could spend an hour just on this one alone, and we won't, but you could go through your high school yearbook, make a list, start reaching out to get the numbers. So next, you could easily get a few hundred from that. Next, think about sports teams, all right? Sports teams. Think about your coaches. Who'd you play soccer with? Who'd you play the other sport with? The other sport with? The other sport with? I want you to think about clubs that you've been a part of. Think about previous jobs that you've had, coworkers that you've had, or their parents, your boss, supervisor, manager. Pens should be going rapid fire. Clubs and organizations that you've been a part of. Parents, relatives, siblings, friends, parents. People from your church. People from your neighborhood. I'm going to go through like 100, by the way. So rapid fire, baby. Write them down. Write them down. Church, neighborhood, old neighborhood. Your health club or gym. Person at the front desk. Who do you work out with? Workout partners, old workout partners. People from your old soccer, football team, basketball team, lacrosse team, tennis team, golf. Your little league. Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts. Cub Scouts, friends from college, roommates you've had, people from high school, middle school, go all the way back to elementary school. Who's your best friend in elementary school? Who was your first kiss? Have you seen their parents? People from preschool, friends from your old jobs, former employers. Who'd you meet at the last wedding that you went to, sat next to? Who'd you meet from other friends, like friends of friends? Last time you were hanging out with your friends, they invited somebody along. Who was at your high school graduation? Who do you know that owns their own business? Who do you know that owns their own business? Who did you used to date? You know, 3 of my ex's parents, I was nervous to call them all, but I called them all. All 3 bought. Every time they go home and they visit their parents, they open up that kitchen drawer, or they see that kitchen set on the block on the counter, and they're like, "Oh, David, the one who got away," right? And so sell to your ex's parents. Your long lost cousin Jim that you forgot to send a Christmas card to. Who'd you receive a Christmas card from? Wedding invitation, save the date. Who do you know that works in a hospital? Who do you know that works in local government? Who do you know that works in sales? Pen's moving, pen's moving. Who do you know that works in the restaurant industry? Who was at your last family reunion or get together? Who do you know that is a doctor? Your doctor. My doctor bought, my dentist bought. What about your orthodontist, your barber, your hairstylist, your old teachers, your current teachers, your bank teller? Who do you know that sells you stuff? Who's your cleaner, dry cleaner, parents' dry cleaner? Who is your old babysitter? Who sold you your car? What about your mailman, your postman? Who's the richest person you know? Your dentist, physical therapist you've been to, your shrink. Who do you know that does your taxes, fixes your car, inspects your car? Who's your neighbor, your next door neighbor? What about 2 houses down, 3 houses down, across the street? Who'd you grow up with? Who'd you golf with? Who'd you used to beat up? Who'd you ski with? Who's your optometrist? Eye doctor, in case you don't know what that is. Who's your best friend's parents? Your friend's parents? Who do you know that wears a boot on their foot because of an injury? Who do you know that's stranded at home with nothing to do? Who do you know that loves knives? Who's the most likable person? The most funny person? Who's bald as a beagle? Who do you know that just redid their kitchen? Just won the lottery? Who do you know that works with tools? Who do you know that works overnight? 3rd shift? Who do you know that's a truck driver? Who do you know that's a housewife that loves to spend her husband's money? Who's the most attractive person you know? Who do you know that's over 35 with kids? Who do you know that's in management? Works 2 jobs? Who do you know that works a lot of odd jobs? Who do you know that likes to hunt? What about their parents? Who do you know that likes to cook, to bake, to fish, to garden? Who's the most successful person you know? Who do you know that has life insurance? Who sold you your life insurance, or your parents? Who do you know that just got married? Who do you know that's engaged? Who do you know that has a son, daughter, that just got married? Who do you know that's a realtor? Who do you vacation with? Who do you know that collects Beanie Babies? Who do you know that's a goat herder? Sold your furniture to you? Owes you a favor? Cuts their food before they eat it? See everybody, the most successful person you know. Your favorite adult, your ex's parents, your brothers and sisters' friends' parents from their sports teams. People that you graduated the year before you or the year after you. You've taken music lessons from. All the police people that pulled you over for speeding. Any target customer that's willing to sit down with you for 45 minutes. You see, the more you show, the more you sell. And this is just the start. Now let's talk about how to get the numbers, all right? Let's talk about how to get the numbers. So in your training manual, there is a page, and on that page says how to get phone numbers. There's a phone approach that you can use for calling your friends to get their parents' numbers, all right? Calling your friends to get the parents' numbers. There's also an approach that you can use for Facebook messaging for demos. So you can Facebook message, like you can go to your mom's Facebook, friend all of her friends, and or your dad or any adults that you know, and then you can direct message them on Facebook for demos as well. So your managers can review those pages with you. The reality is there's so many names, there's so many numbers that you can get. So now that you have the tools to come up with a much bigger list, you just have to implement it. You know, I often hear the phrase that knowledge is power, but I've got to tell you that that's not true. The reality is that applied knowledge is power. So now you have the names, and you can go through your yearbook and all the other things I talked about and get a bunch more names, but you've got to take action to create the list, to get the numbers. I promise you that it's going to be worth it. And the more that you put into it, the more that you get out of it. So let's use this information to get a lot of numbers. You know, the job's easy as long as you have plenty of people to call and as long as you're willing to get out of your comfort zone. Lastly, what I want you to do now is turn to your initial list, circle anybody from your initial list that you have not yet done a demo for. And that's where we're going to start when we kick off our next phone jam here. So implement all that and let's get lots of names. Let's get lots of numbers. Manager, feel free to walk them through the calling friends to get parents' numbers and some of the other tips to get more phone numbers. Show them whitepages.com, 411.com, you know, how to look up their neighbors' phone numbers on the online phone books there. And let's use this to introduce Cutco to a ton of people. Really excited for all of you.